Thank you for making time today. This is the Campus Compact National Webinar Series, and we are excited today to have a great team of folks presenting a session entitled Building Ethical and Collaborative Relationships with Community Partners, a focus on white saviorism and how it shows up in community engagement and how to address it. I'm Josh Vanek from Montana Campus Compact, he, him, his pronouns. Marisol Morales asked that I do a little plug for those of you who are here today for a couple things we have going on in Compact World. We've got a deadline out there for the Newman Civic Fellows program. I think that's February 1st. We have the national conference coming up at the end of March 2022 with a really great keynote just announced, and we're very excited for that. And we've got affinity groups as well that are taking, that have open signups. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Jessica, and your team here.
Great, thank you, Josh. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today for this conversation. We are so appreciative, first of all, of Campus Compact for providing a space for discussions such as this, and for offering us an opportunity to share what we have learned about building ethical and collaborative relationships with our community partners. Before we get started, we would like to take a moment to read our university's land acknowledgement. Although we are in a virtual space today for this webinar, we want to recognize where we, as the presenters, currently sit as we hold this conversation today. The University of St. Thomas occupies the ancestral and current homelands of the Dakota people, Minnesota Makoche. We also recognize the Ojibwe and Ho-Chunk, whose lands were colonized by the United States and are currently occupied by the state of Minnesota. We condemn the tools of settler colonialism, including genocide and forced assimilation, undertaken in the name of white supremacy that created structures of injustice and inequity that continue to oppress and marginalize Indigenous and underrepresented peoples. We work towards the process of decolonizing minds and educating students to be morally responsible leaders. We commit to the work of truth-telling and relationship building as we seek new pathways forward as relatives in the University of St. Thomas community, the Indigenous community, and those who traverse multiple communities. Now, I think it is also important, and we want to acknowledge that the statement is only a start in the truth and reconciliation process for our university. Like many other institutions across the country, there is still much work to be done in order to address the far-reaching harms of white colonialism. Now we'd like to introduce the presenters for today's webinar. I'll start with myself. My name is Jessica Hodge. I am a faculty member in our Department of Justice and Society Studies, and I teach primarily within our criminal justice program. I'm also the faculty director with the Center for the Common Good, which really brings me to this space today, and we'll share a little bit more about what the center is and what we do. And Teresa, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. I am Teresa Ricky-Keeley. I am the executive director for the Center for the Common Good. Kelly?
Hello, everyone. My name is Kelly Sardon-Garrity, and I'm an associate director with the Center for the Common Good. Glad to be here.
Now, you may have noticed there are no community partners listed as presenters for today. As we will discuss, it is important to listen to and uplift the voices of our community partners when doing this work. This is key for building collaborative and sustainable relationships. We will bring in the voices of a few of our key community partners during the presentation, but in the space today, we are focusing on the work that we, and when I mean we, university communities such as students, staff, and faculty, what we need to do to build these relationships. So what are we going to be focusing on today? Well, here's a quick rundown of our agenda. We'll first provide an overview of the Center for the Common Good at the University of St. Thomas. Then we will discuss white saviorism and how this shows up in community engaged work. Then we will highlight the center's guiding principles to build ethical and collaborative relationships. And then we'll offer some time at the end to share some resources for perhaps some self-reflection and to answer any questions that folks might have. Now, Teresa is going to provide a brief introduction now to the Center for the Common Good and the center's key initiatives. This will help provide some context for our discussion today so that you have a clearer picture of the space we hold on campus and how we interact with our community partners. Teresa.
Thanks, Jess. And to give you a bit of context, the University of St. Thomas is an urban Catholic university with about 10,000 undergraduate and graduate students. We have 2 campuses, one in Minneapolis and one in St. Paul. The Center for the Common Good started almost 5 years ago and came out of the university's strategic planning process. And we are grateful to be in the process for strategy for the next 5 years as well. We promote collaborative, co-curricular, curricular research and change-making initiatives that address both civic and community challenges. The center encourages and supports students, staff, and faculty to be transformational partners, and that partnership is key for us, in collaboration with the broader community members committed to advancing the common good within our local, national, and even our global communities. Our aim is to foster a lifelong commitment to civic and community engagement, meaning we really want our alums to be active in their communities after they graduate, wherever they may land. As you can see here, we have 7 programs or initiatives within the center. The first is academic community engagement, which is our primary curricular program and the one that we'll be discussing today. Most people understand this as the service learning pedagogy. We also have a Tommy's Together Volunteer Center where we connect students, clubs, faculty, and staff to vetted community partners that want our volunteers. We also have a community-based research program for both faculty and students. Changemaking for the Common Good was created out of our partnership with Ashoka U. We also have Undertold Stories project that's featured in the PBS NewsHour, and you'll see a link to that at the end of our presentation. Our CVIA, as you can see, there's civic engagement, voter advocacy, and education, works on our civic engagement programs. Since we created this initiative, we have engaged hundreds of students in advocacies and voting, and we're really happy to report that we just learned we're number 4 in our state with an 82% rate of campus voting for our student population. And I believe the national average is 66. And last but not least, we have our Project for Mindfulness and Contemplation, which during COVID supported much of the community, all of our campus community, through the anxiety of the pandemic. I hope you are all familiar with this image. It's one that we use every single day. Our programs are rooted in the social change wheel. We have over 300 community organizations, including schools, government entities, and nonprofits that partner with over 3,000 of our students, many of which activate the spokes on this wheel. We ground our programs with this tool for both on and off-campus initiatives. It's really clear that our students understand what they are working towards when it comes to social change. Our work and partnerships focus on the understanding that we have systemic and structural racism. Our purpose is to understand this reality and partner with communities on co-creating social change. And as you can see in the middle, all the spokes are connected to anti-racism, equity, and co-creation, something that we really want our students to understand how they can engage in and affect change. Jess will now dive into the concept of white saviorism and how this shows up in community engaged work.
Great, thanks, Teresa. So as we move through this discussion, we offer these 4 questions as a way to reflect on your own community engaged work, whether it's through research collaborations, course-based activities, or other types of community engaged activities. Recognizing that we all come at this from many different lenses and with a wide array of experiences, both personal and professional, we invite you to reflect on these questions as appropriate for you and your work with community partners. So now just to give some background for those that might not be familiar with the term white saviorism and where this really has developed in relation to community engagement. In 2012, Nigerian-American novelist Teju Cole coined the term the white savior industrial complex in response to a popular video that was just exploding on YouTube called Coney 2012. The video is made by a small San Diego nonprofit called Invisible Children. Its purpose was to shed light on Joseph Kony, a Central African warlord, and was one of the first videos really to go viral. People were asked to share the video, to bring attention to the issue, and to donate funds to the cause. Now, what Cole was getting at with this concept was how white saviorism allows people, particular people in positions of power, to be rewarded for, quote, kind of saving those less fortunate, while completely disregarding or ignoring the policies that they themselves have supported that have created and or maintained systems of oppression. So whether we realize it or not, this position lends itself to an internalized assumption of superiority over the people who are considered, quote unquote, kind of needing the help. And so as Cole highlighted, it becomes a self-serving response to the emotions of people, particularly white people in America, for doing something to kind of feel better about feeling bad. For example, sharing a video on social media. And it's also why people must first learn the context and history of a region before kind of blindly moving forward to help or assist people or a community that they do not understand, which can actually cause more harm than good. Now, this has just been discussed in the field of community engagement in different ways, and you can see that a little bit on the bullet here, where, for example, it can show up in where one is not questioning whether their entry into the community is even necessary or even asked. Also, it can show up in the form of going into a community with the assumption that we know what is best, or that we know how to kind of, quote, make things better. In other words, we might question the tactics or strategies of the community organizations. It can also show up when we do not take time to listen, to really listen, and to learn from those in the community already doing the work. And in a very simplistic form, this can show up in a way of capturing community members' stories or their photos without first asking permission, but also for really just self-serving purposes. Now, here is a quote by one of our center's key community partners, Catholic Charities, that really reflects how students and faculty may go into the community with the assumption, again, just thinking they know what is best or that they know how to make things better. And I'll just read the quote here. "We have worked with colleges in the past to create curriculum and tell us what they want for their students without discussing our needs first. It can be like trying to fit a round peg in a square hole, unless you are working together to discuss needs, wants, outcomes, and opportunities. Also, as with any partnership, concerns regarding longevity were present. However, with the establishment of the Collaboration for the Common Good in 2018, and I should mention this is the collaboration between Catholic Charities and the Center for the Common Good, this collaboration, both partners clearly made a commitment to building a long-term relationship." So now white saviorism can also show up when we don't take time to listen and learn from those already in the community doing the work. And another key partner of ours is Women's Advocates, which is a local domestic violence shelter. And here, Brennison says, "Some concerns that I had when first collaborating with the St. Thomas community involved time constraints and the ability to invest in important concept. I also was concerned about staying connected throughout the entire semester and being able to check in and provide continual support and points of connection." So again, we see this idea of not when faculty or students may not take the time to really listen to the community partners or to get to know what the community partners really need for the partnership. And we can see this also in the context in this next quote too. And this is from Keystone, another one of our key community partners in the center. And Jen says, the greatest challenges we've experienced with partnerships is when our project ideas or ideas of what would be most helpful to us as an organization doesn't fit neatly with classroom objectives or timelines. Sometimes there has felt like inflexibility from faculty or a misunderstanding about our community work, which has sometimes led to feelings of frustrations from faculty if our ideas for projects don't fit seamlessly into classroom learning objectives. So I think these quotes can focus, or these quotes, I'm sorry, have really focused on how white saviorism may show up with faculty engagement with community partners. So we want to share a little bit about how this might show up with our students as well. So included here on the slide is a quote from an article from Tulane Center for Public Service and the work that they are doing in order to improve their collaborations with community partners. And as it related to kind of what I was discussing earlier in terms of Cole's origination of white saviorism, industrial complex in particular, I wanted to share this quote because I think it is really a concise way of thinking about how this can show up with our students. So Cole describes white savior industrial complex as the act of a privileged, often white group going in to, quote, save a disadvantaged, often non-white group, as if the disadvantaged could not improve their situation without the help of a white savior. This mentality often leads to a lack of humility within the privileged group, leading them to impose their own solutions and values onto communities where they might not necessarily fit. And so the issues we often see from students is that work with communities can be reduced to simply needing to fulfill course requirements. So in a sense, they are only kind of doing the work or doing the engagement in order to check off a box and not really taking the time to critically think about or try to understand the larger systems in place that are creating the disparities or the challenges within the communities that they are trying to address through their engagement efforts. Students often simply assume that by showing up, they are doing the community a favor, right? That they often fail to really recognize how they may not actually be making a positive impact on the community by being in the community. Oftentimes, this approach also fails to recognize the efforts or really the lift involved by community partners in working with students in this capacity. And we hear this from our community partners as well. So another quote from the staff at Catholic Charities, and they say, given the nature of higher education and the revolving door of students and classes per semester, it is difficult to continue connecting with students after the semester to help them dive more deeply into issues that our agency is working on, such as housing stability. Developing anti-racist perspectives and practices is inherently a continuous process. So short-term opportunities aren't always effective at building nuance or counteracting white saviorism. So again, instead of working to best support a community partner, potential connections might be reduced to a minimum requirement, again, really trying just to complete a number of hours or to complete an assignment without really diving into and doing some critical reflection. Here again, Brennison, I think, outlines how students can sometimes simply show up and simply think that they're helping by being there. For women's advocates, it's important for faculty and students to understand our mission and the broader public health crisis and human rights issue that domestic violence is. Having a deep understanding of our organization's purpose and ways that we hope to support the community is crucial. It is also important for faculty and students to be able and open to reflecting how supporting women's advocates can extend beyond their academic realm and into other spheres of their life, as we all possess the ability to affect social change where we live, learn, work, and gather. So again, when we don't take time to really listen to our community partners or take time to learn more about what they're doing, their purpose in the community, maybe their mission, neither the students nor the communities that they interact with really acquire an increased capacity in order to address the problems or maybe the harms in which they are working to address through the community engaged activities. And finally, here's a quote from a community partner, again, Keystone, that really highlights how white saviorism can show up. I think there is a long history of nonprofits feeling like we have to say yes to any idea, partnership, donation, or volunteer project without the recognition that true partnerships take time, effort, and can require a, quote, lift for nonprofits. So I think it's really clear from Jen's quote here that when we, as university faculty, staff, and students, fail to listen to our community partners and assume that our efforts are benefiting the community, we are simply perpetuating the harms of white saviorism. Now, Kelly is going to now explain how the guiding principles of the Center for the Common Good serve to address white saviorism in this work and serve to guide how we engage with our community partners in order to build sustainable and meaningful partnerships.
Thanks, Jess. Hi, everybody. Again, I'm Kelly, and I'm going to share a little bit about the ideals that we commit to and strive for related to our community partnerships. And building on what Jessica already outlined, from our perspective, any community partnership has to begin with a commitment made to by all of us, and in my case, this means me, to do the work I need to foster a greater sense of self-awareness and awareness of others, especially those who represent the communities, organizations, and individuals we collaborate with. And I would add also, especially if our partners identify with historically minoritized communities. So this is crucial. Our approach at the Center for the Common Good is to connect with the broader community through nonprofit, school, and government partners. We start by learning about and vetting an organization we're interested in partnering with, and then identifying and inquiring with the organization whether they'd like to explore a collaboration with whichever university-affiliated person or group or course. And if the response is yes, then we start the exploration process. So about respecting and listening to our partners. Whenever I meet with someone representing a nonprofit, school, or government partner, whether they're a potential new or a longtime partner, I try to be intentional about how I present myself, as well as the center and the university. I want to meet our partner or potential partner with attentiveness, with humility, and with respect, and to be ready to listen, to ask clarifying questions so as to better understand and ultimately to learn. I want to share who I am as authentically as possible with the hope that we can start to build or continue to build our working relationship such that it feels authentic and respectful, which is a key element of building trust, as we all know. We want to begin a partnership by letting our partners share who they are as much as they're willing and able to, and to have the opportunity to share their questions and concerns. And eventually, hopefully, presuming we decide to move forward with a partnership, they'll share their priorities and expectations with us, and we'll form a partnership from there. About fostering equality and respecting differences, as I or we as the center take part in facilitating a process for exploring and imagining a partnership together, I want to be sure that first, those who need to be present and representing the partner organization are indeed present when possible, and that the processes we decide to use for determining whether or not to engage and how we'll engage with each other feel respectful and appropriate for everyone involved. And this is part of our ongoing conversation. And of course, acting with integrity and transparency deepens this trust. And this has to feel authentic. With our next slide there, Jess. So as far as doing no harm, we commit to striving to do no harm, which of course is a complicated process, especially when all of us are deep in reflection about what our role is in communities. And we're an education institution as well. And so students are learning and we're experimenting and we're going to make mistakes along the way. And that's where that trust really comes in, I think. To me, this means as far as doing no harm, this means in part that each of us has to recognize and come to terms with the biases and prejudices that each of us, that I hold, and how these can be harmful to our partnership and our communities. Realizing that each of us as human beings has biases and prejudices, we choose to acknowledge these and to have this be a part of our conversation and whenever possible, and to intentionally treat each other and each person we encounter, regardless of their story, their life experience, their background, with an open mind and with checked judgment, as well as with humility and respect. Regarding constructing sustainable, long-term, and mutually beneficial partnership or partnerships, a partnership that's sustainable and long-term is an ideal that we strive for, so long as it makes sense for all the parties involved. Those involved have to have the freedom to end the collaboration or partnership when they feel they need to, for whatever reason. That said, if trust is fostered through the partnership and those involved are clear on our respective roles and goals, our priorities and expectations, and ways that we communicate, if we're attentive to the partnership and we're willing to address challenges and conflicts together, ideally we can work together for a long period of time, which ideally translates to deeper co-created impact and meaning in our relationships. When exploring a partnership, we invite the partner to take the lead by sharing their questions and concerns first, and as well as their priorities and expectations. And from this foundation, we start to build the partnership. Committing to learning and reflection, we frame everything we do at the Center for the Common Good and at St. Thomas here as change making for the common good, which essentially means that each of us has a contributing role within our respective communities and that we have a collective responsibility to advance our common good, while always taking the lead from those who are most impacted by the decisions that we make together. Again, this brings us back to entering into any partnership with humility and with a willingness to listen and to learn and be led by that. As far as our role in the Center for the Common Good and how we strive to honor our partnerships, some of the support and resources that we offer and provide, we're really here to help identify and foster and support partnerships. And so this means that we're in relationship with a lot of our faculty, staff, and our students, as well as our community partners and prospective partners. So we want to be as accessible and available as we possibly can be. We also coordinate a number of trainings and orientations, and we do this in the context of what we know about best practices of community engagement. And we commit to doing this with our partners' participation. So that's key. And we do this when we do our trainings for faculty who are new to community engaged learning, service learning. We have a 3 or 4 day community engagement institute, and our partners are very much a part of this. They take part in it and they share their stories and what their hopes and aspirations are and their expectations and priorities are in our working relationships. We do orientations with students in all kinds of different ways, depending on the context, and ongoing trainings, and our partners are very much a part of this too in doing orientations with our students. We do scope of collaborations, especially when there's a new collaboration, new faculty, new students, new staff, new partners, so that everybody has a clear understanding of what this partnership is all about. We support curricular and co-curricular program design, and partners take part in this as well. And so everybody's clear on what we're trying to do together, and we move toward these commitments and these aspirations as we're imagining them together. We provide a number of resources to remove barriers. These include logistical and technical resources, and a lot of these are really focused on honoring our partnerships. We offer an honorarium for partners who do participate, through giving presentations and accompanying our students in learning and in the engagement activities. Ultimately, we're about fulfilling our commitments, saying or doing what we say we're going to do, and then expressing gratitude and really uplifting our partnerships and looking forward to what's possible. And then we do some assessment as well, and this is a really critical part of what we do. And of course, we involve our partners in this as well. Just to share a quick example in our next slide there, just a quick example of a particularly inspiring course that has come about. It's a collaboration between students enrolled in Introduction to Sociology courses through St. Thomas's relatively new Doherty Family College, which offers a 2-year associate's degree for students who want to obtain a 4-year degree at whatever 4-year institution. We hope that they might consider St. Thomas as that institution. And it's for students who face financial or social obstacles along their path to participate in a 4-year degree. And this Doherty Family College collaborates, this sociology class collaborates with College of Arts and Sciences Introduction to Sociology course. So there's 2 professors involved in this. And they met through our Community Engagement Institute, and through reflection and some fellowship building, they became friends and decided that they wanted to focus their community engaged courses and collaboration between them on the theme of housing insecurity and housing justice, which makes sense for an intro to sociology course. And this led to a connection with what's called the Family Service Center, which is a temporary residence in the Twin Cities here in Minnesota for families facing homelessness. And it's managed by Catholic Charities. It's one of their 17 or 18 sites here in the Twin Cities. And as Jessica mentioned, Catholic Charities or Teresa might have mentioned it, Catholic Charities is one of our longtime key community partners. And so we invited a meeting. It was instigated by the center, and we got all the key representatives in the same room, including Family Service Center staff, to explore possibilities. And everybody responded with an interest to collaborate and come up with something that would be co-created and that would respond to all the parties involved, the needs and aspirations through this partnership. Something unique about this partnership is that besides partnering with Catholic Charities and the Family Service Center, the 2 professors also wanted their respective student cohorts to meet and to get to know each other and to have the opportunity to learn with and learn from each other by sharing their life stories a bit, and to do this in the context of connecting with the children at the Family Service Center. And these have proved to be really powerful relationships and friendships that have come from this collaboration. So through conversations with families residing at the Family Service Center, the staff there were able to identify a few particular collaboration opportunities that would allow the St. Thomas students and the children at the Family Service Center to spend time together and with each other, and namely through participating in arts and crafts projects. What could be better that the St. Thomas students created, and some really creative projects that they all engaged in together. This multi-party collaboration has been a source of inspiration, as I mentioned, for many imaginative ways to co-create community, meaning, and learning across many different backgrounds and life experiences. Just bringing in the voice of our partners again on our next slide there. And so this is another one from Catholic Charities. Working together to establish something that's mutually beneficial is key, is what they say. And it is important to have a level of trust so those conversations regarding the needs of each organization can be had in a fruitful way. This comes with listening to each other, being flexible, and figuring out a way to meet in the middle if an opportunity doesn't exactly match up. Also, it's important to admit when something just isn't a good fit. At the end of the day, honesty and transparency will only help those we serve, in this case, our clients and the students at St. Thomas. And one other quote we'll just mention here before I transition it back over to Jessica. This is from our colleagues over at Keystone Community Services. Jen Winterfeld, in particular, is our key contact over there. I think the most important piece about community partnerships is feeling valued and respecting as equal partners. For me, showing value and respect means being flexible with us, offering great communication with reasonable timelines and clear next steps, being receptive to our ideas, and offering to help however possible to make things a little easier on our end. This is something I can say has always happened with the Center for the Common Good, and I can say this value of offering mutually beneficial partnerships has felt like an authentic value in my interactions with staff. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Jess to help summarize and kind of take it home before we open it up for some questions.
All right, thank you, Kelly. So what I'm showing here are just some key takeaways. And this is really adapted from a piece by Gustin Jordan and called they call it the 6 tenets of community institutional partnerships. And I've kind of just concised it just a little bit here and thinking about how, what we can kind of lean on as we are doing community engaged work, being very intentional about building, again, these ethical and sustainable relationships. So again, recognizing that it really is a shared knowledge and shared power. This means that there is a true reciprocity in the partnership. And this can look different kind of depending upon the particular community partner, the course or the particular community engaged project, but that there is some reciprocal knowledge being shared and power being shared. It also requires full participation of all partners in the decision-making process. And again, and we heard this in some of the quotes from our key community partners, where they really want to be part of that development stage, not being kind of told how the faculty or the students are going to engage with a community partner, but more being asked or invited into this creation or co-creation activity. Also, another pillar to lean on is that there should be mutual respect and also mutual benefit. This means respect for the expertise that all partners bring to the table. Again, not thinking that we as faculty or we as staff or students at the university know what is best for a community, but really recognizing that there are many different lenses, many different perspectives, many ways of knowing and having respect for those different ways of knowing. Also having respect not only in terms of ways of knowing, but recognizing that there are different cultural viewpoints that might be part of the partnership and many different beliefs about what we know and how we know. First, I would say probably one of the main pillars and one that takes some time to develop is that trust. Trust that the work being done together places the community needs, their priorities, and the benefit is really to the community partner and with the community partner. And then, of course, reflection, as Kelly mentioned, that being one of the kind of best practices of community engagement. And this should be really a part of all that we do in regards to community engagement from the very beginning of a project or very beginning of a partnership throughout the collaboration. And so again, co-learning and co-creating new knowledge is a reflective process. And those who engage with it need to be reflective together throughout that process. And a stance of co-learning, examining missteps, making improvements are all examples of that reflective process working together through that collaboration. And so again, we just wanted to kind of highlight these, share these pillars as perhaps some key takeaways from the conversation today. And then just to revisit these reflection questions, wanted to bring them up again to kind of highlight them as forefront in our minds. And also to underline how this really is a constant process of learning and evolving in this work. While we are, of course, here sharing kind of what we have learned throughout our time with the Center for the Common Good, we certainly are not experts in this, and we ourselves are continuing to learn and evolve as we engage with our communities. Now, to assist with this learning process, we wanted to offer just a few more resources that could potentially be helpful as you are kind of grappling with some of this. And Kelly is going to share those links in the chat space in case you wanted to pull those up for future use. The first one is a video. It's about a 4-minute video by comedian and actor Amanda Seales. And the title of this video is Savior versus Ally. And it is a very, it's a comedic, but very pointed conversation that she provides in terms of what it means to be a white ally versus a white savior. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that video at some point after today's presentation. Also, too, Teresa mentioned that we are in partnership with Ashoka U. We are designated as a Changemaker campus, which is really where our initiative, the Changemaking for the Common Good in the Center, kind of came about. And a couple years ago, and actually it's kind of an interesting connection here, right during, we had to quickly pivot. We were supposed to be hosting kind of this global conference on campus and had to, of March 2020, quickly pivot, as many people had to, and make this a virtual conference, which actually worked out really nicely in the end, in the sense that we had some really great videos that we can share out, recordings of these sessions. And so there are a couple highlighted here. That link will take you to the full kind of YouTube playlist for the Ashoka conference. However, there's a couple there that are a little bit more relevant for the conversation today, and those are highlighted. And then lastly, another resource, which we are particularly proud of here at St. Thomas, especially as it is another initiative that Teresa had mentioned through the Center for the Common Good, is the Undertold Stories Project. And one particular series that they have really developed within the last couple of years is their Race and Equity series. And they have a lot of really good short videos, and short being, anywhere from like 5 to maybe 10 minutes long, very, again, pointed, but very informational, very powerful videos, sharing stories, sharing perspectives that we often don't hear about in kind of the mainstream. And something, just as a faculty member myself, who often brings these types of videos into the classroom, Undertold Stories also provides additional materials beyond just their short videos. They have discussion questions for many of their videos. They offer podcasts. They do a 360. There's just a lot of really great tools from Undertold Stories that can be incorporated not only into a classroom, but perhaps in other types of conversations or activities. So again, I encourage you to perhaps take a look at the Race and Equity series, but there's topics really across the board that could be very relevant and very useful. Okay, well, that really brings us to the end of our presentation in terms of the information that we will be sharing. Now we want to just offer some time for any questions that folks might have, anything for clarifying, or anything that you would like to hear a little bit more about. And of course, there on this last slide is our email if you are interested in connecting with any one of us at the center, and then of course our website as well. I'm going to shop this time.
And if folks want to raise hands, I can unmute you and we'll let you just speak away.
And if there are no questions, that's okay too. So I do see, yeah, so thank you, Amy. I see a question in the chat asking, well, she writes, can you share a little bit about what your assessment process is like with partners? It's a great question. And this is actually a component that we instituted for the first time this past summer. We'll be doing it regularly with our community partners, is a community partner survey. And so we send it out to partners that have engaged with faculty, particularly with our course-based collaborations, and to learn a little bit about what worked well, what didn't work well, was the collaborations bringing value to their work, kind of helping serve the organization's mission and purpose. And so it's been an informative kind of experience. I don't know if Teresa or Kelly, if you wanted to add kind of beyond the community partner survey.
I would say with our major partners like Catholic Charities, we also have regular meetings, regular semester meetings to be very transparent, to discuss what our challenges are and what their challenges are. You can imagine during COVID, those were on both sides of the aisle. We were one of the few organizations that during the pandemic, especially early on, we wanted to make sure that our community was supported. So we continued to send students out there, but as more and more science came out, there were more and more questions about what that meant for their populations, their other volunteers, as well as our students. And I would also say that in all of our programs, there's regular conversations that we'll find out about something that's not working, and on the spot, we'll change a process. Kelly, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, I think that pretty well sums it up. And I'm seeing a few more questions coming in too. Let's see here.
Kelly, do you want to, one of the questions was about institutional resources or institutional support that we have to ensure that staff, students, and faculty, are able to maintain the high level of community engagement. If you want to expand a little bit about what some of those resources are.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's the resources. We have our staff in the Center for the Common Good. There are, let's see, there's 4 of us, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us who are full-time staff. Another full-time person splits her time between our center and student affairs. And then we have some faculty like Jessica and another faculty member who have a couple course releases. So we do have that institutional support. And we also started a program where we have some emeritus faculty who are involved. I think we're up to 4 now, actually, which has really been a great. So that's a whole program that Teresa's really developed. And as far as resources in the way of financial resources, we're thankful that that University of St. Thomas has really put the center in the midst of the upcoming strategic plan, and so has really. On the part of the president, as well as provost and a number of, the presidents and a number of folks around campus have demonstrated some real support and priority for the center. And this is reflected in financial support, among other institutional support. And so we can, like, for example, I saw there's a question there about honorarium too for community partners. We do feel it's really valuable to give our partners something for their time, especially because they have an expertise that I think a lot of people would probably pay a lot of money, to have them represent in whatever that their activity or partnership is going to be. And so, because they have this expertise, we want to honor that and their time, and especially now in the midst of COVID. Our nonprofit partners, and we all are to a degree, we're strapped because of the strain of the pandemic. And so it's a modest honorarium. So if a partner comes and does an orientation with our students, which is a best practice that we want to uphold, then we'll give them $50 for their time. And oftentimes, they may come more than once to a class, which is very exciting, I think, and meaningful for the students, and really enhances their learning. And as far as other resources, for our Community Engagement Institute, we are able to give a stipend to faculty for participating and then implementing a community engaged course. And so that's helpful to engage faculty in this. And then the hope is that they have a really good experience and that they'll come back and do it again. And then we get to that longevity piece and that sustainable partnership piece. So there's a number of resources, and it's great to have institutional support. And I know that's not always the case. It hasn't been the case at all institutions I've worked at for this kind of engagement. But it's certainly a way to honor our partnerships and their time and expertise, I think, as well as our faculty.
Teresa, before I go and answer the next question, I want to see, was there anything else in terms of institutional support? Kelly mentioned briefly the strategic plan, but I wasn't sure if there was something else perhaps you wanted to add in terms of context around that.
Yeah, we are also trying to educate and support policies around tenure and promotion, annual evaluations. Jess actually writes a letter for the faculty file so that people really understand the amount of work and effort and impact that's happened in the community. So we try to uplift that. We are working on some language that can get into the faculty manual. We'll work on that in this up and coming year. But really just educating people about the importance of community engagement.
Great, thank you, Teresa. And so I did see there was one question, and maybe I'll take that one in terms of, it was from Elizabeth saying, since we work in academic spaces with requirements, how do you address this and get students beyond meeting the requirements? The golden question. Yes, that is something that, I've been doing this work in different ways for a number of years, even before, my time here with the Center for the Common Good. And that is that question where, trying to encourage students to get beyond kind of that grade, right? How they are going to be assessed, how they're going to be, what do they need to do in order to complete a particular assignment? And so what I have really found is a couple different things. It's not only kind of bringing in that orientation component. I think that has been really key in helping some of my students, particularly in some of my more introductory or lower level classes, kind of getting them beyond thinking just about an assignment or having to check a box to get something done. But when you have that orientation from a community partner, you have them come in to really give context to the issue, not only in terms of the organization's mission and kind of the services that are provided, perhaps the clients or the population in which they work with in the community, but it gives some kind of urgency or kind of a sense for students that they could have, that there is a potential to have some impact, if they were, if they were to take some time to kind of really think about, these issues or whatever topic it is that you're trying to kind of do or address through the community engagement activities. So having that orientation, and then also too, another best practice is building in that reflection component, doing that. And there's a number of different ways, in which this can be done, right? It can be where it's just having those critical conversations in the classroom in which you are really carving out time to address not only kind of students, maybe their questions, their concerns about the community engagement, but also taking time and being very intentional about carving space out on your syllabus in the classroom to bring in readings, films, videos, different podcasts, whatever it might be that's appropriate to kind of dive into the topic. Something that I really kind of have taken to heart, and Brenison mentioned that Women's Advocates is actually the organization in which I collaborate with quite regularly. And so Brenison, when she mentioned in her quote earlier about really wanting faculty and students to take that time to really learn and to hear and to kind of dive into the issues, is really important for community partners. And I see that. And then I also have seen how that by doing so and kind of doing that in my classes has really helped my students move beyond just having to complete an assignment to check a box. So that's some of the ways that I have been able to address those things with students.
I can take on this next question, Jess,
Thank
about
you.
Databases. We don't have a database for partnerships, but we do have a database for community partners. So being a nonprofit leadership professor, I really look at each one of our partners through a variety of lenses. Do they have the capacity to work with our students? A lot of small organizations will come, and then when we send a class out to them, it's just overwhelming. They just don't have the staff or the supports to manage a class. Do they have a good mission match? Is this a partner that we want to partner with? Do they have the capacity to work within a semester, for example. So I go through their 990s, I look at their finances, I look at their board participants, really making sure that they are a good match, and then having conversations to make sure that they want to partner with us. Just because they're a great community organization doesn't always mean they have the time or the wanting to do that. It's an internal database, so any of our students or faculty can go in to take a look at that. We have the social change wheel spoke that's associated with it. So if somebody wants to look at only advocacy opportunities or charitable volunteerism, they can actually go and just look at those organizations that work on that one spoke. And we also have, we're populating right now the UN goals. So if somebody wants to look at that from a more global perspective, they can do that. We have over 300 partners. We'd like to whittle that down a little bit to have deeper partnerships so that we're not using somebody once a year or once every 2 years. We want to really make sure that they understand the meaning of partnership and that they know what to expect. And when that much time goes on, we could have some turnover, they can have some turnover. We want to have something that's a little more systemic. I hope that answers your question.
Right. Any other questions for our presenters today?
Oh, I see Carolyn
I see a
raised her
hand up.
hand.
Yeah, let me unmute you. Carolyn. Okay, you're unmuted, Carolyn.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm a slow typer, so I thought this would be easier. Thank you guys all so much for sharing this. I jumped in a little late, but I just loved hearing what you were sharing. I do have a question actually on the topic of partners. I'm at the University of Scranton here in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And one thing we noticed, we definitely do not have 300 partners, but we do work with a large amount of community organizations. And one thing that comes up a lot in community engaged learning is, you know, you have this partner for the semester and you work on a project or a collaboration and things go well. And then if the course isn't run again, or, you know what I'm saying, or those students leave, you know, we have a lot of turnover because our students graduate and they leave and they might leave the area or they're not with the university anymore. I'm just interested in learning about how you keep the momentum going on projects and how you keep those collaborations continued. Instead of kind of having to like reignite a fire every semester and everyone's very excited about it. And then the project goes well and the project ends, but then the project ends. And so I'm really interested to know if you've had any success in maintaining these projects and partnerships that kind of continue, like have a continuous thread going forward past just one single course offering.
Maybe I'll start, and then certainly Kelly or Teresa jump in, add to it. I think a couple different things that kind of jump to my mind. One is that we try to, especially with some of our key community partners, are really intentional in trying to connect them with different faculty. So it's not just you know, one course or, you know, one project in which they might be engaged with, but it could be, you know, from different programs, maybe different courses within a particular program, just different ways. So there's that point of connection. And we've had some success, particularly with some of the key community partners that were highlighted here. That there's been a number of faculty that have been able to engage with them in different ways, kind of however was kind of appropriate for a particular course or particular discipline, but it's helped kind of keep that momentum and that collaboration going. So that's been really beneficial. We've also seen where, you know, faculty are willing to be kind of creative and flexible. So depending upon it might work, you know, they might do kind of a semester long kind of course-based, a semester-long project that they really focus on something on a kind of on a high level component. for a higher level course, whereas then maybe in a lower level course might do something at a much more minimal level, or maybe not as extensive. And so they might be teaching a different course from semester to semester, but they're still able to kind of keep that point of contact. So again, they can keep that momentum going. So there's just different ways in which we have seen this done, and it's been successful in that way. Kelly or Teresa, if you wanted to add anything to that.
No, the last thing I just mentioned is, for as we're kind of moving into really developing deeper partners, deeper partnerships with particular community partners, it's helpful to get to know a number of different people in the organization. And so that if somebody does leave, it doesn't have to necessarily mean the partnership as a whole has to end. And something that's helpful, at least in our case, is having because we have a volunteer arm of what we do, and that's a really crucial part of what we do. So students connect by volunteering, and there's different programs that we'll run, like a tutor mentor program. There's one that we're calling Shelter Crew that goes to different shelters like Catholic Charities and others. And so it's helpful to have that ongoing commitment, and then we can place in the course-based partnerships along with those, so that it's not that nothing is happening, with a number of our partners. So trying to fulfill that commitment in a lot of different ways.
Excellent. Well, I want to honor our presenters' time. If there are any final questions, last chance, folks. Thank you, Jessica, Teresa, and Kelly, for being here and bringing this great material. Really appreciate it. And thank you all for making time in your day for the webinar series.
Yes. Thank you all.
Thanks, Joe.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.